and Going Underground on BBC Radio London. Every once a month on a Wednesday, I'm really delighted to say on a monthly basis, I have Ready Tech Go. And this is with James Erskine. He is a friend of Radio London. He's a tech expert for the show. And also, as we mentioned earlier on, he's a founder of the youth marketing agency Rocket. You can find James, by the way, on X. It's James Erskine. That's spelled Erskine. So James, let's get into it then, shall we? What was it? I mentioned, and I guarantee there'll be a lot of Swifties. The ears will have perked as soon as I mentioned Taylor Swift. So why are we talking about Taylor Swift in terms of technology and tech
Well,
news?
it's a big day on Friday because there's a new Taylor Swift album.
Of course, yes.
Now that's
Huge.
why it's news. But TikTok went a little bit quiet about 2 months ago, and Universal Music withdrew the rights to all TikTok songs, to all Universal Music songs appearing on TikTok. And suddenly lots and lots of videos on TikTok had no music in the background.
Oh yes, it went quiet, didn't it?
It all went quiet. And that's because of a dispute over who pays who and how they get paid Universal Music's artists. They were saying TikTok is unfair. And it's a really interesting debate about who's benefiting more, the Universal Music artists by being able to promote their music on TikTok, or whether TikTok is benefiting more because it's got the Universal Music content in the background.
Right.
But what's also interesting, and another layer of depth to this, is that Taylor Swift, through a unique relationship with Universal Music, owns the copyright to all of her own stuff.
That's correct. She's fought hard for that, hasn't she?
She has. It's one of the reasons why she re-recorded all of her albums recently. So she's in charge, and that's one of the things that signifies her as an incredible business person.
Absolutely.
Well, ahead of her new album, last Thursday, Taylor Swift songs re-emerged on TikTok. And what that means is now TikTok suddenly, you can get Taylor Swift content again.
Okay.
And also she's broken ranks with the wider Universal Music portfolio of artists. So it's interesting on a number of levels. It shows that Taylor Swift is her own person, and it shows that Universal Music can't control their huge talent, Taylor Swift, and it gets the TikTok community really excited about the new Taylor Swift album that's coming this Friday.
Absolutely. It's almost kind of like additional promotion, isn't it? All about the promos.
Exactly.
Which is taking place. But with this whole arrangement, is it this conversation around, as you've already said, who gets more from the arrangement of TikTok, or is it the music stars? And where do the emerging artists fall into all of this? We're on Radio London. I think it's fair to say we've got some of the best artists in the world, Londoners, such as Adele. Where do the emerging artists, though, the ones that are listening right now, fall into all of this with their music rights?
Looking at the music industry through the prism of technology is a fascinating thing to do, because I'm old enough to remember the 1990s.
Yes.
And that was
I am too, by the way.
that was my era of going to see live music. And there, live music was a promotional tool to sell CDs and albums. Now, the music industry has flipped.
Right.
It's the recorded music that actually drives the revenue at live music and tours. So live music and tours are where the bulk of established artists make their revenue.
That's right.
Now, for emerging artists, it's really tough because actually payments on Spotify, for example, payments on TikTok are very, very small. And the way that they're done, they're leveraged by the big record companies. So they're chopped up by who are the big artists and who aren't. So it's actually very tough for an emerging artist to make money.
Yeah.
Now, what it's easier to do for an emerging artist is to generate a following.
Right.
So you don't need a gatekeeper. You don't need BBC Radio London to pay you the music.
Well, you do, because we like to listen to it. But I see what you're saying in terms of the music labels.
Yes.
You don't need those kind of label companies to sign artists. We've seen that most famously, of course, with Ray as well, haven't we?
Completely.
And what she's done, especially at the Brit Awards. James, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. And whenever we finish our chat, I'm always left with more questions. But that's the best time type of news, isn't it?
Indeed, I hope so, yeah.
We'll look forward to seeing you next month. You'll
I'll
be
look
back.
forward to it. Thank you very much, Shay.
Very much. We'll have you back on the show. James Erskine, our tech expert on the show with Ready Tech Go. You can listen back to that, by the way. Go to BBC Sounds and find him on X as well. Right, it's 5 o'clock now. Let's get the news headlines on Radio London.